guys, it's Hank. We're going to try a little something different today and talk about reincarnation and cosmology. And I know this is a little different from the geopolitical analysis that you're used to getting, but I'm still gathering a little information on that, so there should be a video out here pretty soon for you to look forward to. So I figured I would just try a little something different and offer a bit of a reprieve and a respite from the news. So let's get right into it. The quote today is, "If you had known me, you would have also known my Father, and henceforth you do know him, and you have seen him." And that's John 14:7. Now, what I'm talking about today is reincarnation and planar cosmology. And I was listening to somebody's work the other day about a guy that had a near-death experience where he was drowned as a child, and he went to this plane of eternal bliss and wonder, and he asked if he could return. And that's just the short version of the story. And he felt just this oneness and this incredible sense with feeling of being with God and in the just wrapped in the divine essence. And he went on to talk about how God was a loving God and not a wrathful God of the Old Testament. And I was thinking to myself, you know, I used to believe the exact same thing, that God was a loving God and that was it. It was the be-all, end-all. But then I started to really think about it. And when I went and spoke to my grandmother, and I told her, I said, you know, the God of the Old Testament is a wicked God, and how would anybody worship him, and all this other stuff. And she told me, she went right to this verse, "Here, if you had known me." And those are the words of Jesus Christ. And it really got me to thinking that number one, it's blasphemy to speak for God. Anybody that I ever hear say anything about what God wills or whatever, almost immediately I will dismiss them. I'm not really interested in hearing anybody that claims to speak for God. You can have prophets, and everybody can, I believe people should be sharing their testimony. And the unique thing about spirituality and testimony is that everyone's experience is different. It's not scientific. It's not going to be the same for everyone. Let me give you an example. Jonathan Kleck, who is a kind of an online evangelist, believes that he was saved in an alley behind a hotel as he tried to escape, and was met by a figure that looks like Siddig Al-Fadir. I think he's the guy from, and I might be mispronouncing his name, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He plays the doctor, Dr. Bashir. And that Obama was the Antichrist. Now, while I do not believe these things to be true, they're not true for me. This is not his spiritual journey is not my spiritual journey. And things that are true for him may not necessarily be true for me. Because we're all seeking to find, or I would hope that many people are seeking to find God, find and be part of the divine essence, to be one. And so, you know, personally, I think giving Barack Obama the status of Antichrist, it's really doing a disservice to the real Christ, because Obama is just an idiot. So it's giving him way too much credit. He's just a moron. So yeah, I'm not going to give him the full-blown status of Antichrist. just being stupid doesn't get you that. And one would think that the Antichrist is everything that is antithetical to Jesus Christ, and Obama definitely doesn't deserve that distinction. So we differ, but that's his belief. That's his journey. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm right and Obama's not the Antichrist, because in his world, Obama very well might be the Antichrist. Perception is 9/10 of reality. So that's part of the spiritual journey. And I was thinking about Jesus Christ in the New Testament, and how, for me, the path has been through Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ has came to earth as the Son of God, to show us and inspire us and teach us so that we could learn how to become one with God. And you would go through Christ to be one with God, because God, to my perception, I've seen nature. I've seen a hawk fly in and rip apart the baby birds in the nest as they screamed and died. This is nature. This is God. All things are God. And if you're not very careful and respectful, then I don't think that you want the universe, God, everything that it is. It's very difficult to explain, because there are few words that really can do justice to these things that are spiritual. Very difficult to communicate, but to not respect that power of God is, to me, very, very dangerous indeed. So I understood now that God is a loving God, and God can be a wrathful God. And I would never dare to speak for God, nor would I claim the ability to absolve sin, because that rests with the divine and the divine only. How can any man absolve you from sin? And to me, the Most High God, people of various religions can find themselves brothers and sisters under the same God. Whether you call him Jehovah or Allah or a him or a her, these types of concepts that are truly spiritual in nature, we do not have the language to communicate properly. We don't even have the faculties to perceive, much less describe, and hardly comprehend. It is truly a matter of faith. So it makes it very, very difficult to communicate faith effectively, because it is so personal. And I heard a Muslim cleric speak once that God rests between the heart, somewhere outside and in the heart of man. I don't quite really remember or understand, but I understood it. Not the language, but so much that to be one with God, it's to be part of the essence, I guess, because God knows what's on your heart. You can't deceive God. You can't deceive. There's no fooling God. It's impossible. It's just not possible, because God is everything, and And God knows your heart. And I'll use the word he, but I don't think he or she is really applicable in this way. To say Father is fine, or, and the verse that precedes John 14:7, that through Christ is the only way. And for me, it has been through Christ was the only way. When I started to examine Jesus Christ, I found so many things there. And I've always been so afraid of God. I really, really am afraid. I love God, and I do my very best to obey God. But that does not mean I am not terrified of God's power. For all the good things that have been bestowed upon me in my life, I know that it can go the other way too. And Job. Job was the wisest man. He was the most just and the most fair. And he was well respected. But he suffered many afflictions and was cast out. But never did he deny God. This was his spiritual test. And we all have different spiritual tests in this realm. And I can get on, and I'm going to explain why I believe this to be the case. That life is a spiritual test. And if you can first accept God, and then listen carefully and obey and find the path to God. And I would recommend Jesus, but that might not be for everyone. And far be it for me to condemn someone else's spiritual path. This is one of America's gifts. America's gift is that we are able to worship as we please. Not very many other places in the world or in history have given people that freedom. And in this country, it seems people have chosen not only to ignore this gift, but to embrace the idea that there is no God. To squander one of America's greatest gifts is to be able to worship as you please. So you can find your path to God and earn a personal relationship with God. Or you may find it in a Catholic church, you may find it in a Lutheran church, you may find it in a congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, you may find it in the Mormon church. And fundamentally, without the arguments, the little small things that divide these faiths, fundamentally, right is right. And that is in the hearts of men. And if you are in touch with God, if you train yourself to overcome temptation and do what is right, even though it might not always be easy, you understand that right is right and wrong is wrong. There is a morality to it. It's not law. It doesn't have to be codified. You obey God because you know you should. And you should have the good sense to know the difference between right and wrong. Even those that have never heard the Gospels can be good. And those that have never heard the Gospels can be evil. And those that have heard the Gospels can be both good and evil. And evil is evil and good is good. And I don't think that there are many places where that's a gray area, because it's between the heart it's in your heart and God, and there it is. There it is. So you will know if you listen. You will know if you pray. Now, the judgment of a spiritually bankrupt nation. I believe that, unfortunately, the United States has gotten away from God. And even I know that I had gotten away from God. And I didn't pay being God, spirituality, enough attention when I was younger. I didn't respect my traditions, the traditions of my ancestors that had brought us so much in this knowledge. I ignored it, and it was all available to me. And I didn't find it until later in life. And I didn't find it until after I had been battered and beaten and battered and beaten and battered and beaten, until I thought there was nothing left. And in a few instances where I had prayed and truly prayed, God saw fit to deliver me. And every day I am so grateful for that. I'll never deny it again. Never. And I will profess my love for God each and every day, and I will pray. And I don't pray for things. I don't pray for material things of this world. For example, let's see here. Charity and life and prayer. Freely you give, freely you shall receive. So when I was much younger, I would explore without really knowing these spiritual truths. And I always found it very beneficial to me in my prayer to give something over to God in return for something. So, for example, I would say, to God, I give you my fear, I give you my anxiety, I give you my worry, in exchange for strength and courage. And you give away, and then that's on you. It's really hard. You've got to say, all right, now I've given it to God. Now I've got to work in myself to make sure that those are moving away from my soul, and I can give it to God. And that's hard to do. And then receive the gifts of God, if I am worthy enough to receive them. I've always been hesitant to talk about matters of faith, but in these days I think it's very important for us to be honest about our spiritual natures, because it's not really something that can be argued. There is no argument about it, because what is spiritually true for me may not necessarily be spiritually true for another. Just like perception is 9/10 of reality, everyone has a different path. Everyone has a different journey. We just happen to be on this plane at this time, on this world all together at once, going bunches of different ways. I would think that while we're all here, it is our duty and our responsibility to try and make it as easy on others as they go through their spiritual journey in this world as possible, so we can be brothers and sisters under the same God and move toward a higher state of being, whether it be in this world or another. Now, I often hear that people say, I don't want to have anything to do with religion because all of the evils in the world were constructs of religion. So much bloodshed in history has been over religion. Well, my friends, you're fooling yourself, because if you would say that, because blaming God for the evils of man and the way that they manipulate words and faith to take people into what is precisely against many holy texts, and probably is, again, I don't speak for God at all, but from my perception, that's not God's fault. That is a sin of man. Deception would be the sin of man, and also the dominion of Satan or evil or whatever that you would say. That's not God's fault. That it's not, and you can believe this, that a lack of faith is not going to save you from evil. Evil will still be around. If they don't use religion to trick people into killing each other and fighting each other and doing evil things, they'll find another way. In fact, one could argue that the New World Order is very interested in destroying all religions because it's much easier to manipulate people that don't have faith. Because you can buy them with fake money and trinkets of this world. If they're spiritually bankrupt, they're easy to be manipulated. Even manipulations go on in churches because people fail to examine themselves spiritually, and they're misled by false prophets. So you always, it's very critical to pay attention to the words of the people that say that they are spiritual leaders. And there are people, I believe, that have great theological insights and are very much well worth listening to. And philosophers and writers and artists and all of these different people are well worth listening to. So you must choose carefully who you choose to listen to, and listen to a lot of different people, a lot of different faiths, and a lot of different ways, because you might draw something from Muslims. You might draw something from people of the Jewish faith. I'm seeing a lot right now that I find very disturbing regarding all this hatred for the Jews. Well, Jewish people that I have known in my life have always been, well, not necessarily always, it's very individual. It's on the hearts of man. Just like we don't judge a person for the color of their skin, but the content of their character, nor can we judge how good or how evil they are on their on the faith that they proclaim to have. So I have known very, very many Jewish people that have been so good to me, and such good people, and have taken such good care of me, and to help cultivate myself as a person, cultivate me as a being, see opportunity in me where others had not, teach me things that I did not know. So to say, oh, all Jews are bad because some bastard at the top says that he's a Jew, that's neither here nor there. Evil is evil, good is good. If a person is doing evil things, I doubt very seriously that they're doing it from a truly, I would probably think that they're doing it for worldly gain, in an attachment to this world, which would be a providence of Satan or evil or devil or whatever, whether they know it or not. So, and what is the phrase? Wide is the gate, narrow is the path. So, trust in God, not in man. Pray for discernment. I see so many people misled nowadays, and the people that seem to be most easily misled are people that are spiritually bankrupt. Because if they're spiritually bankrupt, they don't have a moral compass. And without a moral compass, you cannot tell what direction you're moving in life. If you look at things sort of as a compass rose, good and evil, order and chaos, you have this compass to help you navigate life. So you say, I want to be good and orderly, and you follow a good and orderly path, and it will lead you towards good and orderly things. If you were evil or spiritually bankrupt, or you don't have a compass at all, then it will lead you anywhere and probably towards destruction and entropy. I could see no other way. Now, some people would willingly choose evil and entropy, evil and entropy, and they'll be destroyed by it. Yeah, evil's a wicked thing, and I know that's kind of silly for me to even just have to say that, but yeah, if you do evil things are going to come to you. You know, like people that are in the game, in the criminal game, anyway, like drug dealers and murderers and all these other things, they're operating on a whole different level. Now, if you're a good person and you're a civilian, typically you're off limits from those types of criminal endeavors. And if you go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. And that's precisely what I mean. If you try to avoid trouble and surround yourself with good people and positive things and positive images, then you're not likely to have to suffer the consequences of evil actions. And whatever evil action that you take is not really going to get you the material gain that you're going to need to offset the hell that awaits you, if you even survive it. Another old phrase would be, live by the sword, die by the sword. Be thankful and rejoice. Is it the end of days? It's always the end of days. You know why? Because it's the end of days for you. 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 Okay. It's the end of days for you. All right. It's the apocalypse for you. I guarantee it. You're going to die. Whether we all die together or one at a time, it's still the end for you. Welcome to the apocalypse, my friends. You're in it. Of that, I am certain. Now, is it the end of days for the earth? Is it the end of days for all time? Not likely. Not likely. No, certainly that day will come. Certainly there'll be a day where there can be no humans that can live on Earth. And as stewards of the Earth, we should be very careful to work as hard as we possibly can to preserve this Earth so as new souls come into it, they can enjoy it. It's such a vile thing to create a hell for the next people that come through. And if you do, I don't speak for God, but I believe that you will be judged. I can operate fundamentally 110% knowing that there is a God. All of it, creation, just the fact that I'm standing here in it is not a matter of coincidence. It is everything. So to think that you're going to do evil things and that the universe, God, however you want to, whatever you want to ascribe the notation to, won't exert some sort of punishment on you for doing evil things, it seems a little bit arrogant. It seems really dangerous too. knowing the things that I have suffered have only been, I mean, they've been extremely painful for a human to endure, but I know it could get a lot worse. I know my circumstances could be a lot worse, and I am absolutely grateful for the circumstances that I don't like to use the word I am either. Where I'm just lucky enough, and I'm just so grateful for the things that I have. Like I say, spiritual matters are very difficult to talk about because I'm very nervous about misrepresentation, because it's very, very, very hard for me to be able to communicate these things. But I feel it's necessary. Okay. So forgive me if I'm not as articulate as usual. So, let's see here. Yeah, the spiritual test snares of Satan. People have been saying things like that this world belongs to Satan and all these other things, and that we're living in an evil world at an evil time. The world can be what you make it, and it can be a matter of perception. Yes, there are a lot of evil people, morally, spiritually bankrupt people doing evil things to other people on this planet, and doing evil things to the planet and to the future. They are the scum of the earth. And whether in this life or the next, they'll most certainly get what's coming to them. There's no doubt about that. I have no doubt about that. Okay. So, I'll talk about the planar cosmology a little bit. I know this is getting out here, but the planar cosmology is predicated on kind of a simple concept, and the simple concept is that simply by the virtue of nothing is nothing, so it cannot be. So there's always going to be something. So we're always going to be in the realm of creation, if that makes sense. Because nothing by its definition cannot exist. There's nothing. Now, it does exist in a sense, but that's not really important to this understanding. It's just important to understand that you're in creation, and creation is going to create until one or the other. And so let's look at it like this. Let me just quickly explain. These two ends right here, they stand for neutral. They stand for where we are right now in this world, in this life. And if we do good deeds and we obey God, we might move in the next life or in this life, to a better place, to a plane that's closer to heaven. Now, that requires good acts and spirituality. But if we do evil things and commit evil acts and perform evil ritual magic, or sell our souls to the devil for worldly power and some promise that you're going to get the afterlife that you think you're going to get by doing evil things. Wow, that's not very smart. That's pretty much, I think anybody that would do that has been deceived, and they're not in for a fun time. Okay, so takes them to hell. And if you go into the next life and you're still evil, you can keep going down into a more hellish experience. Just like the tangents, and I know I'm going off on a tangent, pardon the pun, but tangents in the, like, if you look at kind of like Einstein-Rosenberg theory, you want to bring scientism into it, and you move from one tangent to the next, kind of like sliders in that respect. You could kind of think of moving through planes like that. So you can move to one where it's just really shitty and get shittier. Or you can move into planes that more resemble heaven. And ultimately, I would think that the goal is to have been able to become one with God in such a way that you can return to be one with God and be in that eternal and never have to be tested again. You can always enjoy. Beyond, I can't explain it. It would be beyond comprehension to be one with God again. But for those that sold themselves to the devil or have committed so many evil acts, I can think of a few that would probably get you condemned to some serious torment. Lost souls for all of eternity. This would be no second chances hell. Where I'm at, if I were to think of hell, I think of hell in this way, where you never die, and it's torture. And you're never gonna, it's just never gonna stop. You pray for death, but it's never gonna come. You're just truly in for an eternity of never-ending torment. That's no good. So, first, the first step on that path to hell is to deny God. And to deny God is to rob yourself of all the spiritual power and all the love and all of the, just this, and you don't do it for those things. You don't do it to get anything. That's not, for me, that has not been the path of spirituality. It's not spiritual at all to try and manifest things into the material world. So, because I am terrified to speak too much more at length about spiritual matters, for fear of misrepresentation or misrepresenting anything, I'm going to leave it at this. So, I would love to hear what you think and what your path has been, or where you feel like it's going, and to discuss matters of spirituality. I find that I would greatly enjoy that. So if you have comments, leave them, and I'll try and address them. It's been Hank. Catch you on the flip side.